They say you're never truly alone on the night shift. But sometimes, silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's watching. 3 workers, 3 nights. One terrifying truth. When you're the only one awake, how do you know you're really alone? Turn off the lights. Don't turn around. They tell you the dead don't speak. But after 3 years cleaning up what people leave behind, I can tell you that's a lie. The dead speak through the mess they leave. They speak through the blood patterns on the drywall, the position of the furniture, and the things that are missing from the refrigerator. My name is Elias Thorne, and I work for a company called BioClean Solutions. We are the ones they call when the police have finished taking their photos and the coroner has loaded the body into the van. We are the erasers. We make the tragedy disappear so the real estate agent can sell the house again. Most people think the horror in my job comes from the gore. It doesn't. You get used to the biology pretty quickly. The real horror comes from the silence of the houses we work in and the realization that sometimes the job isn't finished when the sun comes up. It was November, just before Thanksgiving. The air was already getting that biting chill that settles. In the Midwest, I was assigned to a job in a subdivision outside of Indianapolis. It was a nice area, manicured lawns, 2-car garages, the kind of place where people leave their bicycles on the lawn because they feel safe. The dispatch ticket said, unattended death. Usually that means an elderly person passed away in their sleep and wasn't found for a few days. It's sad, but it's clean work. No violence, just biology. I arrived at the house at 10 p.m. We prefer night shifts because the neighbors are asleep, and there's less chance of awkward questions from grieving families walking in on us scrubbing blood off the carpet. The house was a 2-story colonial, dark except for the porch light. I had my key code from the property manager. I parked my van, grabbed my chemical kits, and walked up the driveway. The silence was heavy. No crickets, no wind, just the hum of the neighborhood streetlights. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. It wasn't the rotting smell of a long decomposition. It was sharper, metallic, copper, blood. My stomach tightened. Dispatch had lied. This wasn't an unattended death. This was a crime scene that hadn't been fully processed, or someone had cleaned up poorly before calling us. I turned on my flashlight. The beam cut through the dust motes in the air. The living room was normal. A TV remote on the coffee table. A throw blanket draped over the couch. But there were scuff marks on the hardwood floor, deep gouges, like something heavy had been dragged. I moved toward the kitchen. The back door was wide open. The screen door was hanging off one hinge. That wasn't on the report. I radioed my supervisor. Mark, I'm at the site," dispatch said unattended. "I've got an open back door and drag marks in the living room." Static crackled on the radio. "Copy that, Elias. Police cleared the scene an hour ago. Maybe they left it open for ventilation. Just secure it and start the prep." I didn't like it. My protocol says if the scene looks compromised, I wait. But I was alone, and the contract said I had to have the estimate done by morning. I walked to the back door and pulled it shut, locking the deadbolt. I turned around, and that's when I heard it. A floorboard creaked upstairs. I froze. My hand went to the pocket where I kept my pepper spray, though I knew it was useless against anything determined. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded thin in the empty house. "Property maintenance. Is anyone here?" Silence. Then another creak, directly above me. Someone was walking in the master bedroom. I backed away from the stairs. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I thought about running to the van, but my keys were on the kitchen counter, 20 feet away, across the open living room. If I turned my back, I was vulnerable. I grabbed a heavy stainless steel spray bottle from my kit. It wasn't a weapon, but it was something. I moved quietly toward the staircase. I told myself it was the house settling, old houses grown. But this house wasn't old. It was built in 2015. I put my foot on the first step. The wood didn't creak. Whoever was up there was walking on the carpeted landing. I climbed slowly, counting the steps. 1, 2, 3. Halfway up, the air got colder. I reached the top of the stairs. The hallway was dark. The door to the master bedroom was ajar. A sliver of light came from inside. Not my light. A phone screen. Crept down the hallway, my boots sinking into the plush carpet. I could hear breathing, shallow, rhythmic breathing. Someone was sitting in the dark, waiting. I reached the door and pushed it open with the tip of my spray bottle. The room was empty. The light was coming from a phone left on the nightstand. The screen was lit up with a text message notification. I shouldn't have looked. I know the rules. Never touch the client's property. But I looked. The text read, "He's here. Finish it." My blood ran cold. This wasn't a break-in. This was a setup. I wasn't the cleaner. I was the cleanup. I turned to run, and the closet door behind me swung open. A man stepped out. He wasn't wearing a mask. He wasn't wearing gloves. He was wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. He held a length of pipe in his hand. He didn't say anything. He just swung. I ducked, and the pipe smashed into the door frame, sending splinters flying. I scrambled backward, slipping on the hardwood of the hallway. I didn't wait to see him come out. I rolled over and sprinted for the stairs. I could hear his heavy footsteps behind me, fast, predatory. I took the stairs 3 at a time, crashing into the wall as I turned the corner. I didn't grab my keys from the counter. I ran straight for the front door. It was locked. I fumbled with the deadbolt, my hands shaking so bad I couldn't get the key to turn. Behind me, I heard him hit the bottom of the stairs. He wasn't rushing. He knew I was trapped. I finally got the lock open and threw the door wide. I burst out onto the porch and didn't stop. I ran across the lawn, through the grass, toward the street. I didn't look back. I could hear him shouting. Now a low guttural sound. I reached my van and jumped in, locking the doors immediately. I sat there, hyperventilating, watching the house. The front door opened. The man stood on the porch. He didn't come down the steps. He just watched me. He raised his phone and took a picture. Then he went back inside and closed the door. I drove away. I didn't call the police from the car. I drove until I was 3 towns over before I stopped at a gas station and called 911. When the police arrived at the house 2 hours later, it was empty. No man. No pipe. The phone on the nightstand was gone. The drag marks in the living room were still there, but the police said they were from the coroner's stretcher. They told me I was stressed, that the shadows played tricks on night shift workers. They said the text message was impossible because there was no phone found in the house. I quit BioClean Solutions the next day. I still work night shifts, but I never work alone anymore. And I never ever go into a house where the back door is open. But sometimes, when I'm trying to sleep, I think about that text message. He's here. Finish it. I wasn't the cleaner. I was the witness. And whoever was in that house knew I was coming before I even turned off my engine. The worst part isn't the fear of being hurt. It's the knowledge that there are spaces in this world where the rules don't apply, where a house can swallow a person, and the only evidence left is a scuff mark on the floor. I often wonder if that man is still in there, if he's waiting for the next cleaner, if he's waiting for me to come back. I changed my phone number. I moved to a different state, but last week I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a stainless steel spray bottle, dented on one side. There was no note, just the bottle, and I knew without a doubt that the job wasn't finished. There is a specific kind of silence you only hear at 7,000 feet above sea level. It's not the absence of noise, it's the absence of life. No cars, no phones, no voices. Just the wind moving through the pine trees and the occasional crack of timber settling in the heat. My name is Sarah Jenkins, and for 2 summers I worked as a fire lookout stationed in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State. It's a job that attracts people who want to get away from things. Divorces, debt, depression, people who want to be alone. I was there for the money and the solitude. I thought I wanted to be alone. I was wrong. The station was a 14 by 14 cab perched on top of a steel tower. You climb 92 steps to get there. Below you, the world is a green ocean of trees stretching out to the horizon. You have a radio, a map, a pair of high-powered binoculars, and a phone that only works if the weather is clear. Your job is simple. Watch for smoke. If you see fire, you report the coordinates. That's it. You exist to watch the forest burn. It was mid-July. The fire season was just starting. The days were long, the sun setting past 9 p.m. I had been up the tower for 3 weeks without seeing another human being. The nearest ranger station was 10 miles away, down a dirt road that flooded when it rained. I was truly isolated. The routine was meditative. Wake up, scan the horizon, log the visibility, eat, scan again. Sleep, repeat. On the 21st day, I saw something that wasn't smoke. I was doing my hourly sweep with the Osborne Firefinder, a rotating device that helps you triangulate position. I swept the northern ridge, a section of land we called Devil's Backbone. It was steep, rocky, and nobody hiked there. But there was a flash of light, not a reflection of the sun. It was too rhythmic. Flash, pause, flash, pause. I grabbed my binoculars and focused on the ridge. At first, I saw nothing but gray rock and green fir. Then I saw him. A man standing on the edge of the cliff. He was wearing bright orange, like a hunter, but it wasn't hunting season. He was holding something up to his face. A mirror? A signal device? He was looking directly at my tower. I felt a prickle on the back of my neck. Lookouts are supposed to be invisible. We blend into the sky. Nobody looks up. I radioed the ranger. Station. Base, this is Lookout 4. I have a visual on a hiker on Devil's Backbone. Unusual behavior. Requesting welfare check. The radio crackled. Copy, Lookout 4. No permits issued for that zone. We'll send a team tomorrow morning. Stay vigilant. Tomorrow morning. That was 12 hours away. I watched the man through the binoculars for another hour. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the light faded. I lost visual. I locked up the cab for the night. The tower sways in the wind, a gentle rocking motion that usually helps me sleep. But that night the rocking felt different. It felt like someone was climbing the stairs. I lay on my cot, listening. The stairs are metal grating. When you walk on them, they clang. I didn't hear any clanging, but I heard a scratching sound, like fingernails on steel. I sat up and turned on my flashlight. I shined it down the trapdoor that led to the stairs. Nothing. Just the dark shaft leading down to the ground. I told myself it was a bear. Bears climb towers sometimes. But bears don't scratch like that. They claw. This was deliberate. I grabbed my flare gun. It was standard issue for signaling, but it would work in a pinch. I spent the night sitting by the trapdoor with the flare gun in my lap. I didn't sleep. Morning came with a gray, overcast sky. The wind had picked up. I did my scan. The man was gone from the ridge. I felt a wave of relief. Maybe he had moved. Maybe I was imagining things. I radioed base. Base, subject is gone, no sign of fire. Copy that, the dispatcher said. Team is delayed. Mudslide on the access road. You're on your own for another 24 hours. My heart sank. Another night. I spent the day checking the perimeter of the cab. I checked the locks on the windows. I checked the trapdoor. I made sure everything was secure. As evening approached, the fog rolled in. It climbed the mountain like a slow tide, swallowing the trees below until the tower was an island in a sea of white. Visibility dropped to 0. I couldn't see the ground. I couldn't see the ridge. I was blind. At 9 p.m., the radio turned on, by itself. I was sitting at the table, eating canned beans. The radio was on the shelf, powered off. The switch was in the off position, but the static hiss filled the room. Then, a voice cut through. It wasn't the dispatcher. It was a man's voice. Low, distorted. You look tired, Sarah. I dropped my spoon. My hands started shaking. Who is this? I asked into the mic. This is a secure channel. Secure enough? The voice said. I like the view from the ridge, but the view up here is better. I looked at the trapdoor. The scratching started again. Louder this time, closer. He wasn't on the ridge. He was on the tower. He He had climbed the 92 steps in the fog without me hearing him. I stood up, backing against the far wall. I aimed the flare gun at the trap door. "Open the door, Sarah." "It's cold out here." "I have a weapon," I said, my voice trembling. "You have a toy," he replied. "I have the keys to the radio. I have the keys to the truck down below. I have all the time in the world." I realized then that he had been inside the base station. He had access to the equipment. He knew my name. He knew my schedule. This wasn't a random hiker. This was someone who had been hunting me. I looked around the cab. There was no other way out. The windows were small, reinforced glass. If I broke one, I would fall 70 feet to the rocks below. The scratching stopped. Silence returned. I waited. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. I didn't move. I kept the flare gun trained on the floor. Then, the phone rang. The landline phone that only works when the weather is clear. But it was foggy. It shouldn't have worked. I let it ring. It rang 10 times. Then it stopped. Then the radio crackled again. "You should have answered. It was the ranger. He's not coming, Sarah. The road is washed out, just like I planned." I knew I couldn't stay here. If he wanted to get in, he would. The lock on the trapdoor was flimsy. I looked at the window. It was a risk, but staying was a guarantee. I wrapped my sleeping bag around my arm to protect it from the glass. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and swung the fire extinguisher at the window. The glass shattered. The wind howled into the cab, sucking the air out. I didn't hesitate. I climbed onto the sill and jumped. I didn't jump out. I jumped down onto the external platform that surrounded the tower, 6 feet below the window. I hung there, my fingers gripping the steel grating, 70 feet above the ground. The fog was thick. I couldn't see below me. I heard the trapdoor bang open above me. I heard his footsteps on the platform. He was looking for me. I held my breath. I inched along the platform, moving toward the ladder that led to the ground. It was a vertical climb down. I started to descend, rung by rung. My hands were slick with sweat. Halfway down, my foot slipped. I scraped my leg against the steel beam, but I caught myself. I reached the ground and ran. I didn't know where I was going. The fog was disorienting. I ran away from the tower, into the trees. I could hear him shouting above me, but the wind carried his voice away. I ran until my lungs burned. I found the service road and followed it downhill. I walked for 6 hours until I hit the main highway. A trucker picked me up at dawn. The police searched the tower. They found the radio tampered with. They found a campsite on the ridge with photos of me, photos taken from a distance. Photos of me sleeping in the cab. They never found the man. They said he vanished into the wilderness. I never went back to the mountains. I live in the city now, where there are too many people to hide. But sometimes, when the fog rolls in off the bay, I lock all my windows, and I check the trapdoor to my basement, because I know that silence isn't empty, it's waiting. You think you're safe behind a headset. You think because you're sitting in a climate-controlled office in Chicago, surrounded by people, that you're untouchable. That was what I thought before I took the night shift at the crisis prevention hotline. My name is David Ross. We handle calls from people who are at the end of their rope. Suicidal thoughts, domestic violence, addiction. It's heavy work. You learn to listen without judging. You learn to keep them on the line until help arrives. But you also learn that some people don't want help. They want an audience. It was a Tuesday night around 2 a.m. The call center was quiet. Most of the staff had gone home, leaving just 3 of us on the floor. The lights were dimmed to reduce eye strain. I was on my 4th hour of shifts. My ears were ringing from the headset. I took a sip of cold coffee and waited for the next light to blink on my console. A call came in. No caller ID, just blocked. I answered. Crisis line, this is David. You're not alone. Silence on the other end, just breathing. Heavy, wet breathing. Hello? I asked. Can you hear me? I can see you, a voice whispered. It was male, distorted, like he was speaking through a fan. I frowned. Sir, this is a confidential line. I can't see you, but I want to help you. You're wearing a blue shirt, the voice said. You have a scar on your left chin. You're drinking coffee from a mug that says world's okayest brother. My blood froze. I looked down at my shirt. It was blue. I touched my chin. There was a scar, there from a childhood bike accident. I looked at my mug. It was sitting on the desk, exactly where he said it was. I spun around in my chair. The office was empty except for my two colleagues, Linda and Mike, who were at the far end of the room, heads down, talking on their own calls. There were no windows on this floor. We were in the basement. Who is this? I demanded, my voice low. How do you know that? I know where you sit, the voice said. Row 4, desk 6. I know you take the L train home. I know you live in apartment 3B. I slammed the phone down. My hands were shaking. I stood up and walked over to Linda. Did you hear that? I asked. Did you hear someone on the line? Linda looked up, concerned. David, you look pale. What's wrong? The caller. He knew my address. He knew what I was wearing. Linda frowned. David, sometimes people guess, or they bluff. It's a tactic to get a reaction. He described my mug, Linda. He described my scar. I went to the supervisor's office. Mr. Henderson wasn't there. He only came in for emergencies. I went back to my desk. The light was blinking again. The same line. I shouldn't have answered. I knew I shouldn't have, but I had to know. I put the headset on. You need to stop this, I said. You hung up on me, the voice said. It sounded amused. That's rude. We were having a conversation. Where are you? I asked. Are you in the building? I'm everywhere, he said. I'm in the wires. I'm in the walls. Did you know this building used to be a telephone exchange? There are old lines still active, lines that don't show up on the logs. I looked at the phone system. It was digital. VoIP. There were no old lines. I'm calling the police, I said. Go ahead, he said. Tell them. They'll trace the call. They'll find nothing. Because I'm not calling from outside. I'm calling from inside. I looked around the room again. Mike was standing up, stretching. Linda was typing on her computer. There was no one else. If you're in here, come out, I said into the mic. Show yourself. Look behind you, he said. I didn't turn around. I wasn't that stupid. I'm not playing games. Look at the screen, he said. I looked at my computer monitor. The call log window was open. The caller ID field, which was previously blank, was updating. It wasn't showing a phone number. It was showing a video feed. It was a live camera feed. It showed the back of my head. It showed my desk. It showed the room from behind me. I spun around. There was a small black device clipped to the fire sprinkler pipe above my desk. A camera. A tiny red light was blinking. I grabbed a stapler and threw it at the camera. It clipped the device and it fell to the floor, shattering. Mike! Linda! Call security! I shouted. Mike ran over. What happened? There's a camera above my desk. Someone is watching us. Security arrived 10 minutes later. They swept the room. They found the camera. They found two more. One in the break room, one in the bathroom. They were wireless, battery operated. They hadn't been there yesterday. Someone had planted them during the shift change. The police came. They took the cameras as evidence. They told me to go home. They said they would investigate. I left the building, feeling exposed. The city streets were empty. I walked to the train station. I felt eyes on me. Every shadow looked like a person. Every car looked like it was following me. I got home and locked my door. I checked the windows. I checked the closet. I felt safe in my apartment. I took a shower to wash off the feeling of the office. When I came out, my phone was ringing. It was the landline. I don't even have a landline. I have a cell phone. I walked into the living room. The phone on the wall was ringing. It was an old rotary phone that I kept for decoration. It wasn't plugged in, but it was ringing. The bell was clanging loudly, mechanically. I stared at it. I walked over and picked up the receiver. There was no dial tone, just breathing. "You broke my camera," the voice said. "Now I have to come closer." I dropped the phone. I packed a bag. I left the apartment. I stayed at a hotel for 3 days. I quit my job. I changed my number. I moved to a different city. I thought I had escaped, but last week I bought a new laptop. I set it up in my new apartment. I turned it on for the first time. The webcam light flickered on, just for a second. Then it went off. I checked the settings. No programs were running. I covered the lens with tape. I thought I was safe. Yesterday I was working on a document. A text file appeared on my desktop. I didn't create it. I opened it. It was a transcript of a phone call. It was the call from the office. Every word I said, every breath I took. At the bottom of the document, there was a new line of text. It typed itself out, letter by letter, as I watched. I told you, I'm in the wires. I unplugged the computer. I threw it in the trash. But I know it doesn't matter. Technology is everywhere. Cameras and phones, microphones and assistants, trackers and cars. We are never alone. We are never private. And there are people out there who don't want us to be. I don't use a computer anymore. I don't use a smartphone. I live off the grid as much as I can. But sometimes, when I'm walking down the street, I see a streetlight flicker. I see a security camera turn to follow me. And I hear the breathing, not on the phone, not in my ear, but in the silence between the noises of the city. He's not on the line anymore. He's in the room, and he's waiting for me to connect.